in the mid 60s, like 65, 66, 67. And those were the best rounds of golf I ever played. Like, but looking back, there was no way I was shooting 61 and 62. Like, it was almost like I could compete with them, but they also had this gear that was different. And I also wonder how much of it is more a reflection of self-belief than anything. Like, I think many of us, we kind of have this form of self-sabotage that we're actually afraid of going that low. We're actually afraid of really succeeding at the highest level. And I think there was some of that in me. I think one of the things that really held me back from competing at the highest level was probably a lot of fear. There was still a lot of fear inside of me that I hadn't really worked through yet. And those guys, they just played with no fear. They really played fearlessly and were able to just go lower and lower and lower and just keep the foot on the gas pedal. And there was a part of me that was afraid of that for some reason.
To use one of the Czech analogies is, and very important, and I hope we get into this in a little bit, but everybody's into working out, right? But Paul talks a lot about working in. And as I look back on what I see a lot of golfers do, and I'm guilty of it as well, when I made the decision to pursue professional golf, is you work so hard at your game and your swing, or you're out on the range, you're beating balls, or you're going to play. And I don't think enough people take a step back and, well, let me put it a different way. When someone is a kid and they're playing, they obviously go to an instructor, a coach, and they do work on mechanics. That's maybe how they get better. But what kids develop early on, which is, I think, the working in part that Paul refers to, at least if I can relate it to a golf sense, is if you go to sometimes a tournament, or what was very prevalent at the IJGA, and I think most of the academies, is kids have free time. They'll go out to the chipping green or the putting green or the range, and they'll, hey, who can hit it around this tree and to this flag, 30-yard draw or a 40-yard slice, or who can hit this flop shot over this and around this, and just come up with some super creative ways. But in that environment, because everybody seems to be friends or they wouldn't be hanging out together, you develop a somewhat of a sense of trust, and your brain shuts off. And the kids who develop the ability to do that with their brain off and not take it step by step on, I have to take my grip this way or that way, I see that as a very big undeveloped thing in people who are exceptional golfers or athletes or fill in the blank, and people who rise above that. They're I would call it more well-rounded, more skill developed in the, some people would call it the subconscious, but doing so without having any conscious thought at all. And myself, when you say that the fear of shooting really low, I think turning the brain off and trusting yourself that it can guide it to what it needs to be. I think kids develop that. And as we get older, sometimes it's hard to develop that because we don't want to let go of our comfort level or what we're good at. It's very hard sometimes to let go and admit, as you did earlier, that maybe you're not good enough at this, but you can get better. Yeah. Does that make sense? Or I'm just talking in circles?
No, it makes a lot of sense. And what comes to mind for me is creativity. And very much so. You have the left brain and the right brain, and the left brain being kind of like the rational, logical, linear kind of engineer type kind of mentality, but the right brain is the artist. And I think a lot of those great players have this. I think Tiger is probably one of the greatest combinations of the two. Tiger will work on the range as an engineer in the left brain, but then once he gets on the first tee, the artist kicks on, and now it's just creating shots. And I think there were a lot of times where I got too stuck in engineer mode trying to manufacture something technically, where I didn't allow kind of you could say the inner genius that exists within all of us to actually come through. There was there was probably fear and inhibition of allowing that part of me to express itself on the golf course. Where a lot of the guys that we're talking about, they feel more comfortable with that. They feel more at home with that. And, you could explore a million reasons why. But I think you said it perfectly. I think that's really what differentiates kind of those that are, playing out there for a living now, and those that may not have really kind of stepped it up to that level of play.
Yeah, or if they do step it up, that they have to maybe put it in overdrive, because that segment of themselves or their game or whatever portion has to be put into an overdrive, and they can't sustain it for as long a period. Mm-hmm. And even if they do get there, then they're running